I think contemporary worship is improper, and allow me to give my honest opinion on this topic, because I really don't want to critique something out of emotion or opinion. I can't rightfully critique contemporary arguments just because I don't like it, it's too emotional, or I really just want to force people to do what I want them to do or have what I want them to have in worship. And it's interesting because the Bible does not give us an explicit outline on this is what worship must do. This specifically is how worship must be done. The church has the freedom to take some liberties in these things. The Bible itself does not say, oh, in 2,000 years, when you invent electric guitars, it's sinful to use them in a church. That's absolutely not what I want to say. Really, I want to address the best of what contemporary has to offer, not the worst. I acknowledge that there are some hymns that have genuinely awful lyrics, and some contemporary worship songs that have incredible lyrics, fully God-centered and everything. And some contemporary songs go way too far on being me-centered, but I really think that the problem is with the structure itself and not just the lyrics. And I think certain structures can glorify God better than others, which is why I do think that traditional hymns are what all churches should do, rather than the contemporary modern idea of worship. The main reason why I can say that I am not arguing purely out of emotion or not liking it is because beauty is objective. That is a classical truth in philosophical Christian thought. Beauty being objective means that what is beautiful is not just subjective to us. We can all have a subjective experience of the objective beauty, but really, beauty objectively comes from God and from His attributes. We all agree that goodness and truth are objective. Those are just basic Christian truths, but a lot of what the modern culture has gotten to is saying beauty is subjective, and a lot of it comes from the secular world. Beauty is an objective truth that comes from God. Everything that aligns with God's attributes is objectively beautiful, and I can say that there are some music structures that, in the context of a church service, are more objectively beautiful than others, and thus I can make the argument out of real beauty and not just my own emotion. I think contemporary worship fails to do a lot of things because the structure is me-centered. It is not God-centered, and it has a lot to do with emotions rather than true worship of God and orthodoxy. So, in order for me to provide a genuinely honest critique of contemporary worship, I have to show how traditional hymns align with the objective attributes of God in a way that contemporary worship doesn't. And I have two ways to show this. The first is through community, and the second is through sacredness. Point 1. Objective beauty in community. There is a huge difference between corporate worship and private worship, which is that anybody can privately worship wherever you want. Anybody can turn on a worship song on their phone or a hymn and listen to it and worship God privately. But what about corporate worship? Which is interesting because church is not designed for the individual to worship God by themselves. Really, what I want to say is that the whole gathering of the church is around community, and it's around communion. It's around the Lord's Supper, the cup of blessing that we bless. Is it not a participation in the blood of Christ? The bread that we break, is it not a participation in the body of Christ? Because there is one bread, we who are many are one body, for we all partake of the one bread. So really, I want to look at the structure of contemporary worship and its design, and see if it revolves around being one as the body of Christ, and all worshiping together. By design, contemporary worship focuses on the singers, not the congregation. It is very similar to a secular rock concert in the sense that everyone is watching a stage rather than everyone is participating in the act of worship. So really, thought experiment. Imagine you stand in the back of an evangelical church service that's doing contemporary worship. The stage is loud enough, and the stage is what makes all the sound. What if everyone in the audience sings? Great. What if everyone in the audience remains quiet and doesn't participate? There's no difference between these two church services because everything happens on the stage, and whether or not everyone participates or everyone just privately watches, the service is the same for you who are standing in the back of the room. That's why I have to say that contemporary focuses so much on the stage, and when I look around at a contemporary worship service, I don't think these people are corporately worshiping God. I think it's more of the fact that 100 people are all worshiping God individually who happen to be in the same room. And that's what the stage in rock concert does, regardless of whether or not the lyrics are good or bad. However, traditional hymns are for the congregation. They are written in 4-part SATB harmony, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, designed to be sung by any vocal range. They are simple melodies designed by nature to be easy to sing, and that is what traditional Protestant hymns focus on, being easy to sing for the average person with very simple rhythms while still having beauty. The thing about a traditional hymn is that you are the instrument, not the stage. In a traditional church, the sound is produced by people all singing together and praising God in unison with an organ, piano, strings, or whatever is just backing it all up. In a contemporary service, everything is so focused on the stage, and the people don't actually play a part. What I have to say is that looking at this verse in 1 Corinthians and the nature of the Lord's Supper, this is actually an objective beauty that comes from God. The fact that people worshiping God in unison corporately is what the design of church is for. If church is designed for people worshiping God corporately, rather than the individual worship that everyone can get on their own, worship should reflect that, and this is an objective fact. It's not supposed to be focused on the individual's experience. Point 2. Objective beauty and sacredness. God is so holy and so set apart from all the rest of the world that us humans cannot comprehend him. We cannot fully comprehend how sacred he truly is. But we do have things like music to let us feel these emotions and worship him in his holiness together. What I want to say is that the church can use certain secular structures to appeal to a generation and have music that draws more people in, but it should never become like the secular world. Contemporary worship is very high energy in its structure, and again, in form, it's almost identical to pop, just with Christian lyrics added. That is why I'm going to give this thought experiment. Imagine you wake up in heaven at the pearly white gates, and you and a whole bunch of other people are falling on your knees to God himself, seeing him face to face, his holiness and sacredness, and so far above all humanity and their sinfulness. What music do you imagine fits this mood? A choral harmony of a whole bunch of people singing and praising him together? Or the very high energy, fast-paced contemporary songs? Church is the place where we honor God and truly see him in his majesty above all else. As we see, Christianity is supposed to be set apart from the modern world as God is set apart from the modern world. And the music should reflect that. Sacredness is a key point. What best honors the sacredness of God? A whole bunch of contemporary stage lights, a really loud concert, electric guitars, bass guitars, all these crazy things? Or the sacred sounding harmony of traditional Protestant hymns? Everyone is praising God together in unison. I really think that contemporary by nature fails to give honor to God in his transcendence above all else. Traditional hymns have choral harmonies that I think show by music the sacredness of God, and they help us adore him. But contemporary worship, again, it is really focusing so much on the emotional experience, where yes, we are worshiping God, but it doesn't feel sacred. It doesn't feel set apart from the modern world. And again, that's where I'm going to come back and say, God's holiness is an objective attribute of his. And the fact that in church, we are not supposed to be of the world, we are supposed to be of Christ, that this music should honor his sacredness in a way that I think traditional hymns do it very well with their choral harmonies, but contemporary does not. Rather than focusing the music on guitar riffs, a whole bunch of solos, and really loud music, traditional hymns are the people of God singing to him in unity, and I don't see anything more sacred than that. So really, to summarize my thoughts, I think that the worship pastor can have pure motives. I think that the lyrics can be sound and many people can enjoy the service. But the structure itself lacks what God asked for. It is very far outside of the bounds of what traditional music has looked like in the church with chants and people all singing together. I have a really good friend of mine who loves pop music and country and really has made me appreciate these other genres more, as long as the lyrics are not contradictory to Christianity. But in the context and setting of a church where everything is focused on God's glory and his people singing to him, traditional hymns carry this objective beauty in honoring God that contemporary pop, classical, and all other genres fail to do. Contemporary fails to objectively honor communion. To me, the most beautiful thing ever in music is God's people all singing to him as one. This is far more beautiful than a bunch of individuals singing privately who, again, may happen to be in the same room, but the worship is not corporate. Outside of a church service, any form of music is acceptable, and I can't say anything because it's just me stating personal opinions. But in church, I must say that you have to focus everything on the sole glory and honor of God. And he is holy above all else, and he deserves it. The gathering on Sunday is sacred, and the worship should reflect that. Again, these are my honest thinking, and I would take any pushback in the comments, anything you have to say about contemporary. I would want to hear if you like it or if you don't, or how much you've heard about traditional hymns. I want to see contemporary at its best, not at its worst, but I still feel like hymns and people singing corporately are the historic form of worship that has worked, and it serves God and honors him to the fullest.